Okay, hello everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so happy that you're all here. We have Multi here with us, and they're going to talk about how you can develop more accessible applications, more inclusive applications. So this is going to be very useful for when you're starting your project. I'm going to hand it off to Sema, Multi's president, to start us off. Thank you for being here.
Hello, thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to put on this workshop on inclusive design. Just to kind of outline what we're going to do, we're just going to walk you through what inclusive design is, do a little demo walkthrough, a little activity towards the end, and then some resources that can help you do more research and learn more about this topic later. So to start off, we're going to explain the difference between accessibility and inclusion.
Okay, so we are just going to give a little overview of accessibility versus inclusion. Yeah, okay, next slide, thank you. So to sum it up, just as an overview, accessibility is an outcome, but inclusive design is a process. So if you could go to the next slide.
Is that good?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so accessibility is the qualities that make an experience open to all, whereas inclusive design is the methodology that enables and draws on the full range of human diversity. So accessibility just kind of falls under the category of inclusive design. So here's an example to kind of solidify the difference between the two concepts. So imagine like a very old traditional members only gentlemen's club that has a grand clubhouse that's hundreds of years old. Now, let's say that the club decided it was time to modernize to meet accessibility requirements, and so they install wheelchair ramps, handrails, and an elevator. Then after doing this, the clubhouse would be much more accessible, but that doesn't change the fact that the club doesn't allow female members and has a large joining fee. So we can see here that the club isn't actually inclusive, yet it is accessible. So on the other hand, since accessibility is just one part of inclusion, accessibility will follow from going through an inclusive design process, which we'll touch a bit more upon later.
Awesome. Now I'll talk a little bit more about what actually makes a website or an app or whatever product you're designing more inclusive. So as Gigi just said, accessibility is a part of inclusivity. So making sure your product is accessible for those who may have disabilities or impairments, whether that be visual, hearing, or whatever else. And we'll talk more about specific examples regarding this. And also a different type of accessibility is making sure that users with different types of browsers or operating systems are able to use your product. If you're hoping to reach a wider audience, you want to make sure that as many people as possible are able to use it. Next is making sure that your product is simple, easy to use, or easy to navigate and understandable, because you don't want your user to feel confused or frustrated when they're trying to use your product. And lastly, you want to make sure that you are open to feedback when it comes to your product. So either putting your contact information somewhere so people can reach out to you, or having some sort of like feedback form on your website or app. That would be a great way to make sure that you're actually hearing what your users have to say about your product and what they like and what they don't like.
Yeah, so why inclusive design? It allows you to like reach more people. Like you probably want people to see like the app or website or product that like you're making. It creates a more welcoming environment for people. Like you don't want people to feel like they're having challenges like reading or seeing like the app or website. It's easier for you to communicate to all of your audience members. Just like communicate what you're trying to tell them, or like the points you're trying to get across. And then like everyone deserves to enjoy like the products that that we make too.
All right, so I'm just going to walk through just so everyone can just see an example of a few examples of inclusive design. So there's a lot like Angelina kind of brought up earlier, whatever you're trying to build, there could be different things you're trying to build, whether you're trying to make a video, a website, or application, and there are many other things that can be inclusive. So I'm going to actually show you a short, just how these are actually more inclusive. So I'm just gonna start with the video over here. Can you guys, when I start playing it, can you guys hear the audio?
Titles appear over soft.
Is that good? I can't see anyone, so.
Yep.
I can hear it.
Perfect, cool. So I'm gonna show you like a few seconds of it, and then I'm gonna talk through what makes this inclusive and why it's a good example of inclusive design.
Colors that sharpen into images. Microsoft Design, in partnership with Cinelon, presents a Miao Wang film. A figurine plays a violin. In a black and white photo, a smiling young woman with short dark hair wears sunglasses. A vase contains white flowers.
So as you can see in the like few seconds that we saw there, like we just talked about, inclusive design is just a way to make sure people with different experiences are able to use your product and able to like consume whatever you're making. So in this case, there are a lot of aspects covered that will include people. There's the text, there's the audio that's narrating what's going on, and then there's the video that's like showing what's happening. So all of those aspects build together to make that video more inclusive and easier for people with different experiences to watch and consume that video. The next thing I want to showcase is this website. So the first thing that is important when a user first stumbles upon your website is you need to build user confidence. When you build user confidence, that's going to keep your user coming back. And the way you can build user confidence is by making sure you are inclusive and you're accounting for people's different experiences. A few things to point out here is the way this website is laid out. It's looks like a book or a journey. It's taking you through what it wants to show you. It's kind of laying everything out for you. And it's like, oh, here's how you use this. You don't need any like prior experience. You don't need to dig around to find things on this website. There aren't errors popping up. Everything is clear and how you use the website is clear. The other thing to note on here is the contrast of light and dark colors. Even though it might not make a difference to a lot of people, to people who are visually impaired or like people who have some sort of color blindness, it plays a huge role like in identifying what's on the screen, and it's much easier to consume for them. So that's just like one little thing that makes this way more inclusive. Another thing is how big or like that the buttons on the screen, like this one, anything that's really clickable on the screen is big enough to click. So those are just like little aspects, obviously not every aspect of this, but little aspects that make up inclusive design. And all of those put together is what build user confidence when someone is looking at your page or anything that you really make. The next form is, again, like there's a lot more, but we actually have Vincent who's going to walk through a SwiftUI walkthrough, an application. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and then Vincent should be able to share his and do this amazing walkthrough.
Cool.
It stopped. Oh, there we go.
All right. So here is what you'd be greeted with in Xcode if you just make a new project in SwiftUI. So you can see I have hello world. So that's something. We have something there. So I'm just going to show you. We're going to take data of the solar system and like show it in an app that we can like browse different planets and see them in 3D. Hopefully it'll turn out pretty cool. So here is, it's okay if you don't know what Swift is. It's just a programming language that's like pretty similar, I guess, akin to Racket, the way we're using it right now. We're using it in a functional sense. So the way we learned in Fundies 1, just to have our data be immutable. So here we have a struct that is a celestial body. It has the name for either the planet or star. So also like the radius, mass, and then something interesting here is if we have a question mark, that's saying that like this primitive, like this number or character, like whatever that type is, it can either exist or be nil, equivalent to like our null in Java. So yeah, so like that's a quick way we can get around like this, like the sun not having moons or like a year. So we can just set that to nil, and then it, because it doesn't really make sense in that manner. So this is a function just to give us the solar system, an array of celestial body. All right. So, all right. I'm going to start by taking all that data and bringing it into our view. So I'm going to create a variable, like let's call it celestial values, or we can call it solar system. It doesn't really matter, but it's just so this is a static method. So we're calling it on the type itself. So we're now we have the array of celestial bodies. So what's really interesting is that the state modifier here that we have, it's letting us know that this is like the source of truth, meaning like if anything changes in this data, we're going to update the view when we get those changes. Like if anything in this view changes the array, it's going to automatically update the view. So, all right, we're going to get rid of this text here. And we're going to start with a navigation view. So we want to be able to look at the different planets in a list and then tap on one of them and go into another view. So we're going to want that in a scroll view so that we can scroll down and see the list. Sorry about my poor typing ability. Okay, so we're also, so this is a vertical stack. They shorten it to VStack. That means that we're going to have all of our views stacked on top of each other in a vertical format. So if you've taken fun of these two, you can, this is a for each loop, but like specifically with views in Swift. So we're going to take the array celestial bodies, and we're going to tell it that we're using its ID to identify it. Kind of a nitty-gritty detail, but we have to include that. So for every body in there, we're going to create a navigation link. So a navigation link lets the system show a new view in the navigation view hierarchy. And then we're going to have a destination. We're going to make that a new view that we haven't made yet, but it's going to be our detail view, and it's going to take in a celestial body. Cool. So I'm just going to have a preview here. Cool. And this preview, this is the view that we're going to show in the actual VStack. So like the scrolling list that we have. Again, if things aren't clear, you can just put them in the chat, and then hopefully someone will read them out to me and I can try to explain further. So yeah. Cool. So we're going to want a button style. So we haven't made a button style yet, but this is a way we can tell, this is a modifier that tells the view, like basically in a declarative sense, like what we want it to look like. And it can change depending on what device or platform we're on or what settings we have. So I'm going to make a rounded button and have the text color be primary. So that's like the default. And have the corner radius set to be 20. So right now it's saying I have a lot of errors because I haven't made those views yet. But yeah, so padding is a modifier that just tells SwiftUI that we want some space around that particular view. And then for accessibility, we can give it a label for like voiceover, which if you're blind, you can hover over with your finger the screen and it'll tell you it'll tell you what the actual view is. It's really useful in those circumstances. So let me see this, the B stack, yes. Cool, so we're gonna add some padding around the scroll view. I think this is the V stack actually. Padding around the V stack just to separate it a bit from the rest. And then we're gonna have a navigation title. So that's gonna just like, we're telling the system that we like exactly what to show on the top of the phone. So slow system, cool. All right, so that's our content view done. We're going to make a new view. So we're going to make a new file. Let's start with our detail view. So new SwiftUI view, cool. So we're going to make a detail view. Sweet. So just going to, we're going to take in that that view, that celestial body that we put in there before. So yeah, just declare it as being a celestial body right here. Cool. So we're gonna have a scroll view in our here. So we're gonna have another vertical stack. And then we're gonna have this piece of code I forgot to mention, which is a way we can view 3D files. It's a piece of code I wrote like 2 months ago for another project, but hopefully it'll turn out nicely for this. So I'm gonna get the name of the celestial body. So bring that in, and then with the extension USDZ, which is the type of 3D file we're working with. The files are actually from NASA. That's cool. And going to have is rotating parameter that I have in the struct set to true, because we want that subtle animation of model view. Cool. All right, so we're gonna have the aspect ratio set to content mode fit, and then have we can skip out on that right there. We could have had another accessibility just saying that this is like the celestial body, but just in the interest of time to leave that out. So we're going to have a horizontal stack, should be within this. We're going to have some text, just like getting some info about the struct, like about our data. So we're going to get the radius of the planet. So we can set that to be bold with this modifier. We have a spacer, and then text
Is that supposed to be an a U on line 19?
Oh, so yeah, wait, what did you say?
Is that supposed to be a U on line?
Yeah, yes. Thanks for catching that. All right. So we can just get the reason we're using this text instead of like a string, so we need to convert like a string, which is a, which is an object to a functional type. So for, because views are actually like they're not objects, which is really, it's kind of like a lower level thing, but like sort of like an interesting fact about that. So we're just gonna copy that for like the mass and get the mass, and then add like kilograms instead of kilometers. And then sweet. Forgot to add some padding. That would be tragic if you left that out. Sweet. So cool. All right. And then, so something particularly cool about Swift is that we have the if let statement. So if this parameter is nil, it's not going to have this code be included in the view. So we're going to get the number of moons, and if there are moons, it's going to include them there. So we're going to have moons and then have just the celestial bodies moons. Cool. Yeah, great. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Sweet. So we're just gonna get rid of this preview here, but we can quickly make the last element that we need, which is a preview. Well, I can just quickly make that right here. So preview. So in the preview, we're going to have it again take in a celestial body. So we're just going to take from the detail view the declaration here, just in the interest of time. Add that here, and then we're going to have a horizontal stack, and then a vertical stack with the same model view that we have in the detail view. So that's useful right here. So we also want it to be disabled because you don't want to be able to interact with this view, like moving the planet around when it's like this small. It's kind of like not the feature we want. And then I'm gonna have the frame have a minimum width of 50, a max width 50, and height. Just so we have it'd be a relatively small size. And then quickly, we're going to have some text, which is the name, and then have a spacer. So that way it fills up the rest of the space. That's what the spacer is doing for us. All right, so we're going to get rid of this preview just so it doesn't break our code. And then I'm going to, just in the interest of time, quickly grab the button style, just like to quickly have it in our project. So I'm going to navigate to here. I'll explain it what the code is doing. So I'm just gonna copy this, bring it up into the other project that I have here. So I'm going to paste that in and then quickly add the file into our project. So here's the button style. All right. So let's see if this code stops being read. Let me see. Cool. Is it good? Let's see. Text color. Awesome. So let's see the preview. See if this shows up. Okay, hopefully it Xcode likes to be a bit slow sometimes, but if you run it on an actual device, it'll usually end up being faster. But
Yay!
here we have the slower system. So we're gonna wait for it to load the rest, all of the models that we have. So we have, it's a bit slow because we're running it on the computer, but yeah, we've got all the models loaded up. Then we can tap on Earth. Oh, I messed up the padding there, but yeah, so we have the Earth there. Pretty cool. So now I'm gonna, I have the project where I didn't mess up the padding on my phone. So I'm gonna quickly open that up and show you all the accessibility features built into SwiftUI just from writing code that we weren't really saying exactly what we want, but it infers it for us. So show my phone. Let's see if it pops up.
While that's connecting, is it possible to get the code later on, maybe, to share?
Yeah, I have the actual repository. I was gonna send that when I was done anyway. So, but actually, I can just show you. Actually,
we can get.
This is a little strange, but
also we could do another a few of the slides, and then towards the end, if you join with your phone, you can just share your screen on your phone.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Wait, sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, so the added features is that when you change the font size of your device, so for instance, we can actually, let me just do right here, if I say, if I want, if I'm someone who has my phone set to dark mode, if I want / color scheme, so this way we could just see the actual device with dark mode. And then I'll hand it off to you guys. Let's see, did it?
Wait, so I'm good to share my screen, right, Ethan?
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, I'll just send the code. But yeah, awesome.
I'm share my screen now. Thank you for that.
Amazing.
It was amazing. All right. So thank you so much, Vincent, for that beginner SwiftUI walkthrough. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is actionable steps you can take as someone who decided to come to this workshop. The first step into wanting to learn more about inclusive design and getting into it is realizing that people have different experiences. So just a little like mind exercise. Everyone can just like maybe close their eyes for like a minute and think about the last time that you were trying to use something and then there was some obstacle in your way. It could be like a little thing like you wear glasses and there's this, the text isn't big enough on the screen so you can't see it, or the light is too bright for something that you're watching and you can't see it, or the color is like it's in a color that you can't really see. Anything that you've ever had to think about that you've ever tried to do and have had some sort of obstacle in your way, other people, that's what other people's realities and some other people's everyday lives sometimes are. So that's the first step, is just realizing that that's what is the, like that's what the reality is. And then kind of stemming from that, the next step you need to take is to have empathy and be empathetic. So as I mentioned, the first step is just realize that that's what, like, people have different experiences and that's what it is. And then having empathy is trying to understand other people and then putting yourself in their shoes and learning more about them. And then once you're at that step, you can build inclusive products with inclusive design. So to get to empathy, I just mentioned 2 ways here that you can be empathetic. One way is research, Google. Learning more about other people, you can spend that time to research what's inclusive, what are struggles that people deal with in their everyday lives that can be helpful in your app or whatever you're building, whether it's a video app, you're writing a paper. And then the next one is to have conversations with people who have different experiences than you. Understanding different perspectives is super important when exclusion. And the only way you will be inclusive is when you recognize that other people have that, like the other people are excluded from certain aspects of your design. And then second step is, as I mentioned, being empathetic and then trying to build to be more inclusive and to bridge that gap. That is like, you can see more examples of that in, we're going to talk about more concrete examples of like physical disability that you need to account for. Is Vincent still on the call?
Yes. All right. So when we're talking about disability, like, we're not talking about our definition is actually when what we would like to do or what we're capable of doing doesn't match like what technology expects of us. So if you advance to the next slide, it'd be great. So when we go in to make a inclusive product, we want to like recognize our own ability bias. So like, just because we're used, if let's say I'm a visual learner, like, and like everything I do is pretty visual, like being a designer, but like you have to also acknowledge that, and then also bring in aspects of like where people aren't that way, and incorporate like touch and tactility, haptic feedback, and as well as like different auditory things in your product as well. So another thing is having a framework that actually values having accessible, being open to accessibility, making sure that the product itself, like that you're building with, is actually based around that. Again, color contrast, especially when you have like small, like little text, you need it to be like pretty clear and distinct from the background, as well as having like technology, like let's say for maps, it's like pretty interesting to have like haptic feedback, maybe like if you're going left, have like 2 taps with your phone or watch, or like if you're going right, 3 taps. So little things like that can really make a difference. So yeah, the next slide, please. All right, so another thing is that like our metaphors that we have for technology don't really like map to everyone, especially if like different cultural backgrounds. So this is a bit of a call out, but like Snapchat hasn't always had like the best design. It's been it's been a ride, especially. But so like I use Snapchat a lot, but like there's a lot of people who are older and it's not very clear to them how to use it. So we have here actually having messages being split up from stories. That's the way it originally was. And then like they eventually merged those two together and then had like different like sort of Easter eggs in terms of how you get to things. Like it wasn't particularly obvious for people that there was the snap map or memories, like it wasn't clear to like swipe up. But they've made that progressively more and more clear, especially at the top right there, we have the current design, which is having actual glyphs for everything. So just to make sure you can see what's available to you in the app. So they've definitely made progress there.
Yeah, and so here are just some examples of where like inclusion is important. This is a video of one user showing us what it might be like to read with like dyslexia.
Have you ever wondered what it's like for someone to read who's dyslexic in a classroom? Well, I'm a licensed therapist and I have a challenge for you to find out what it's like. So what I want you to do is duet this video and try to read this that's above me. This is what it's like.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and people have like a bunch of different like visual impairments. Like for example, if you look at the color chart above, you can see like what normal vision looks like, and then what like for example green blind color blindness looks like. A lot of the colors like to me kind of look similar, so just be conscious of like what color patterns you use in like your product. And then also as Vincent mentioned, some people might use like voiceover because they have like seeing impairments. So it's just good to keep in mind to design an app for people that might use that feature. And then, so here's some simple ways to make your app more inclusive. Going back to our dyslexia example, italics and white background might be challenging for people with dyslexia. So it'd be nice to have like use like bold letters and maybe an off-white background. It'd also be cool to have a colorblind option on your app or website. I know for Microsoft, for Outlook, you can make your like Outlook email black and white. And then some light changes can like trigger people with visual impairments. So it's nice to keep like one consistent like lighting as possible and avoid like fast changing light alterations.
All right. Do I still need to share my screen, Angelina?
I think I can do it.
All right, cool.
Okay, so I'm gonna send the link in the chat, but we're about to do sort of an interactive activity through Jamboard. I don't know if you guys have ever used that before, but here's the link. And I'll share my screen.
Should we go into breakout rooms or is this good?
I think this is good because
yeah,
it's mostly like on the Jamboard. Okay, can you guys see the board?
Yes.
Screen? Okay, great. So we're just briefly going to do an activity from one of Microsoft's like design guides or inclusive design guides. And this is the first activity in a list of things that you should think of before or during your design process of a certain product. So this prompt is basically asking you to think about what you would trust a computer to do and then what you would only trust a human to do. So on this first board here, if you guys can go over and on the sidebar, there's a little sticky note option where you can add a sticky note. So if you can just do that and add sort of things that you would only trust a computer to do. Or not only a computer, but what you would trust a computer to do versus a human. calculations. Cool.
How long should we spend on this? Like, should we do?
We can spend like 2-ish minutes, maybe.
Cool.
Maybe a little more.
I can set a timer for that.
And while you guys are doing this, try to take notice of what stands out and sort of what some of these answers have in common. I think we can give it like another minute or so.
Yeah, there's like 40 seconds on the timer.
Perfect.
It's so interesting looking at all these because they're, I'll wait till we're done, but there's stuff I want to say.
There's too many to fit on the screen. Thank you to whoever is like moving these as well. Okay, any last ones?
Looks
Okay.
organized.
I heard the alarm. What was that, Sadaf?
I said that looks so organized.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
that's another one. Trust the computer to organize.
Okay, cool. So we can move on to the next frame now. Oh, someone already started. Awesome.
I did that.
All right, should I set 2 minutes for this, Elena?
Yeah, 2 minutes. Sorry. I have feelings. Make a cup of coffee.
All right, yeah, I was about to be like, you have a Keurig.
Yeah. That's valid if you're really picky about your coffee.
There's a extra O in two. Speaking of spell check.
Mhm.
But
I'll check this over here.
I'd only trust the human too.
There we go.
There we go. Thanks.
This is why I'm not an English major. Right. Any last statements?
Yeah, there's 40 seconds left. So. Hey, I love you. Oh my God. I wrote that earlier. I don't know who added that. Hug me.
Negotiate. Interesting. Give me chocolate. Okay, cool. Awesome. So we have a lot of sticky notes. Thanks, everyone. I'll go back to the first frame. Would anyone like to share either what they added or something that they noticed that stood out, or something about all these sticky notes that something that they share in common?
I can go. I think they're all very like repetitive tasks or like predictive tasks. Like there isn't much intuition needed to do any of these tasks.
Yeah, definitely agreed there.
I was gonna say that human ones seem to be more focused on emotions and emotional needs versus computer ones were mostly just like more objective, like logical tasks.
Yeah, definitely. Does anyone else have anything on this frame that they'd like to talk about? Sama is raising her hand.
Yes. It's also like tasks. I feel like now we probably people probably didn't think of this before, but more of tasks we don't want to do are the ones on this list now. You don't want to compile your code by yourself on paper or tell time really or email or read.
You don't want to read, Sama?
I think I added that one. No, I thought of Audible when I added that.
Yeah.
Almost like the tasks that are too simple. I can hear myself. Tasks that are too simple for a human to do, but also too complicated. If that makes sense, like making like the first thing that came to my mind was making calculations, because I don't want to make a mistake if I'm doing like big calculations, but the computer is programmed to make exact values.
I'd also argue that like listening to audiobooks is reading, especially if you're blind. Like, yeah, that's like totally equivalent. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I love listening to audiobooks. So much easier. Okay.
It just makes everything easier, especially like things that are accessible to other people can be useful to people who have those abilities.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I feel like I use Audibles like more because Audible more just because like English is not my first language, so it's easier for me to understand the materials.
Yeah, awesome. Let's move on to the next frame. Does anyone have, I guess, same question again, anything that they would want to share or anything that they took away from this board?
I guess I can say that I don't know, in some years these will probably change. Like I hope I can trust an AI to give me a haircut or to hug me. So these are very subject to change.
I didn't know where you were going with that, and I thought you were going to say, I would trust AI to love me and give me a hug. I was like, I don't think so.
That's weird.
I was going to say, the thing I find in common with all of these is these are things, or some of them are things that people genuinely enjoy doing. So cooking is like something that brings people joy. It's some people's passion. So it's not even that like they wouldn't trust a human to do it. It's just like loving someone or befriending someone or hugging someone or talking to someone. That all those are like things that bring people enjoyment and like are very human traits. So I don't think even if they can be achieved by AI, it kind of defeats the human enjoyment of it. So.
Yeah. Any last comments on this board? Okay, cool. So last question is, how could technology behave better to positively impact trust? So I think what we noticed from these two different boards is that we're more likely to trust humans with more emotional things, or as Selma said, things that we enjoy. So how can we humanize technology to better to better make users have trust in it? Kind of a hard question, but if anyone has any answers or anything they'd like to share, feel free.
While we think about that, can I just share my screen for the last slide we're gonna do?
Yeah, of course. All right, okay.
All right.
I can talk a bit about that.
Yeah.
Well,
So I guess like if you are creating a machine or an AI that you want to trust, you have to give it data that are human. And for giving it data that is human, you have to be representative of all the population if you want it to be used by everybody, not just like a specific type of data that's only for certain people.
Yeah. That also ties into like algorithmic bias. But yeah, that was just a quick activity to do when you're trying to design a more inclusive product and when you want to make sure that your user actually has trust in your product. But yeah, we can move on to resources and tutorials now.
thank you so much.
I actually had one more thing I wanted to say.
Oh my God.
I just wanted, because it's a very interesting question, right? Like, how can technology be humanized? But what if we don't need technology for everything, right? Like, like the tech doesn't have to be like the center of the task. It can definitely enhance something. It can be an asset. It can make something better. But as long as like the people are the focus of the interaction or the whatever service we are providing, then I feel like maybe less technology could be better, which I know is funny coming from like a computer scientist, but also like sometimes like human oversight is also important. So that's something too. Like we shouldn't just leave everything up to the tech, right? There has to be some like human intervention somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a good thing to think about as well. Like, where do we draw the line with what we are trying to accomplish with technology?
Yeah, it's all right for like tech to like figure out what music I like, but when it starts diagnosing me, like we need to like probably have a human involved there. Yeah.
I also feel like one thing for me to like put more trust in technology is for it to be like right more often. I feel like in terms of Spotify, like I get a recommended like playlist every week, and there are some songs like I really just don't like.
Better algorithms, definitely.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Those are really good points. So just kind of to wrap up with the couple minutes we have, if you would like to learn more about inclusive design, Gigi can talk a little bit about what resources and tutorials you can look at.
Yeah, so if you can go to the next slide. So I just have listed a few different guides to inclusive design here. So the first one is a guide from Medium. It talks about some of the different aspects that you should keep in mind related to accessibility when you're designing an app. And then it also talks about some of the best practices are with regard to those aspects. And then the second one is a handbook that talks about how to identify bias, which is like another really important thing to keep in mind. And it goes over several different insights that are important for creating inclusive AI. So if you're interested in pursuing anything AI related, that's a really good guide to check out. And then the third one is Microsoft's website on inclusive design. So it contains their own inclusive design principles as well as resources for doing your own inclusive design. So the activity that we did that Angelina led was actually a Microsoft-based activity. So you can find other cool resources like that one on there. And then finally, the last link is just a guide to a whole bunch of other different resources and guides for learning more about accessibility and inclusive design. So if the three that I listed up there don't quite cover what you're looking for, this list has a bunch of different topics that you can definitely check out and find what you need on it.
Thank you, Gigi. We can definitely also share the slide deck with you guys so you could access those links.
Amazing.
pretty much it. We can go back to more discussion about inclusive design if you guys want before we wrap up.
Yeah, for sure. But I have to stop the recording. But thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Multi, for all the presentation, for all the materials that were covered. I really enjoyed the activity. I think we can all learn from these resources. So I will make sure to post them on our Slack and also in the YouTube description. But again, thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.